All right, guys, back here on Southeastern 14 with Max Barr, and we are sharing our reaction to the weekend action in SEC basketball. Huge slate on Saturday, as we talked about last week, but also a couple interesting games on Sunday as well. We will not go through every single game in detail, but there will be some that we kind of hit on towards the end. So we will mention your team somewhere. We may just not spend a lot of time on them if it was not the results you wanted, or if it was kind of a game that didn't really stand out. But of course, before we do that, Max, we got to tell everyone about our friends at Bet Online. All the major sports are in action this week. College football playoffs right around the corner, as you guys know. So Bet Online continues to be your number one destination for all your sports wagering info, including news for pro football, the NBA, upcoming fights, NHL games this season. It's all there. So head on over to betonline.ag today to get in on the action, see all the updated odds for the week. Remember to use that promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. And keep in mind, we're going to have some big prediction videos coming up too, with some big games on the horizon. So if you want to bet on those games, college basketball, college football, anything, you can do that by heading to Bet Online where the game starts. All right, Max, like we said, we usually sometimes go in order of these. We're not going to do that here. We're going to focus more on the bigger games to start with, and then we'll kind of wrap everything up with some thoughts on all the others. Texas A&M and Houston. I mean, this was kind of one I thought that, went sort of as we expected, except for the fact that Tyrese Radford was out again. And that was one that we did not expect because we mentioned him in the preview that, hey, great to have Tyrese Radford back with Wade Taylor. You pair those two guys together, A&M's got a chance here, and they're going to have a chance to beat a lot of teams when you have those two in the backcourt. Didn't happen again here. But Wade Taylor, I mean, he's the best player in the SEC. If you look at this guy and the way he's playing, perhaps, of course, there's a couple other guys that we'll talk about that may have a claim to that, but he was the preseason player of the year, and he did everything he could to try to, will the Aggies to victory here. But Houston gets a 70-66 win in this one, Max. Yeah, I mean, another game without Radford. Hope everything continues to go well there because, as Buzz Williams mentioned, I just don't know right now. So the Aggies sit at 7-4, but had their chances. It just, they needed that extra punch. And Wade Taylor, 34. The next closest person scoring wise had 7, and that was Jace Carter and Hayden Hefner.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunate to not have Radford in a game like this. And we had mentioned a few A&M games ago when they had to play Virginia without Radford. We had mentioned just how unfortunate that is. Not only because Radford is this going to probably be the second leading scorer, maybe third behind Henry Coleman with how good he's been on offense, but nonetheless a major piece. And when you take that out and you play against a team with a Reese Beekman, that is just not ideal. Very similar with Houston when you got to play a Jamal Shed. You don't want to just have one guard option, but when you have Wade Taylor, I mean, wow, that was some performance. The thing that I've been harping on this team for so long is who's gonna step up to support the big three. It was Dexter Dennis last year. Every game it was him. Who's stepping up? Is it gonna be Hefner, Carter, Obaseki, Lawrence? Well, in this game, in their hardest game, where we start to find where the minutes are being distributed, it was Hefner and Carter. Now, Carter, 1 of 7 from three, had some good looks, had a few threes that he jacked up a little bit too quickly in the shot clock, in my opinion, but seems like Hefner and Carter are the two taking the reins there. If they can just make a few more shots, be a little bit more productive for Taylor, Texas A&M might walk away with a win in this one if they didn't put themselves in such a deep hole to start the game. I mean, 4-point game. This thing was looking like a blowout pretty early. I mean, the story remains, Blake. The story remains. How do you knock this team too much for a decent result without Tyrese Radford? I mean, what are we supposed to do here?
Yeah, I mean, look, they beat Ohio State, they beat Iowa State. Um, the other 4 games they've lost: Florida Atlantic by 7, Virginia by 12, Memphis by 6, Houston by 4. Like we mentioned, I mean, some of those games we know they played with 3 of those games they played without Tyrese Radford. And what, the Memphis game, was that the first game back for him? I don't remember exactly how it fell, but um, so yeah, right. I mean, it's just kind of, you're right. Like, how do you knock them for it? But we said they were scheduling tougher in the non-conference. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to take advantage of a lot of those, but they do still have wins over Ohio State and Iowa State. And now things kind of slow down with the next 2 before they play LSU to start SEC play on January the 6th. So, All right, let's get to the one that's I think a lot of people watching this video are probably here for. Kentucky 87, North
Whew.
Carolina 83. We said this would be a very entertaining game. It was. And yeah, I mean, this was one, like we said, Max, if you wanted to see what the upside of this Kentucky team was, which we've seen throughout the season, whether it was the Kansas game for a good chunk of that, the Miami game for certain stands out. But of course, like we said, we had that. Oh, what happened in the Wilmington game? And you kind of, scratch your head a little bit here at times. But now, this was the kind of game that you see what Kentucky is capable of. And here's I think it's pretty simple. Is this right? 8 guys on this team scored between 7 and 17 points. Um, I mean, just you see kind of at each time, and I think I don't even know, who do you pick from, Max? It's like, oh yeah, I remember this guy making a big basket here, and then this guy
Right.
made the big basket here, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember Dillingham doing this, but then oh that's right, Wagner did that, and you just keep going down the line, and you're like, man, this is why I think we're so high on Kentucky, and you can see the upside that's there. I told you, I said, look, in terms of upside, and I think as someone else was debating this yesterday, I think it's hard not to look at Kentucky and say they've got the most upside of anybody in the SEC, just because when all the pieces are in place, which thankfully they are now, right? Hey, you can see that what they can do and how they can, kind of impact the game 1 through 8, 1 through 9. Like it's just that's how many options they have. And we talked about the depth on this team entering the season, and you're starting to really see that now on display. And this was a game where North Carolina made its run. All of a sudden grabs the lead, in the second half, and you're wondering, how does this Kentucky team respond after having a 12-point lead or whatever it was? Carolina took the lead with 5 minutes to go. They responded by coming down, making big plays, and finding a way to get a huge win there in Atlanta.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I took away from this game was just that Kentucky has late game guards that when you get into that intensity of that
Oh
game, I
yeah,
mean, I felt it through my TV how intense that game was. It was nuts. I was in Atlanta, could feel the tension from State Farm in my apartment. Um, so when you have a game that intense with that much stakes on the line, and you got guards that can go one on one, break down, dribble, drive, one on one, get a touch. I mean, how many tough
oh
running
yeah,
floaters did Dillingham have down the
yeah.
line there? I mean, tough baskets. So just right there, I really like that. How coming down the line, heading more towards March, when you get these close late game situations, Kentucky's going to be able to get to their spot pretty much every offensive possession. But what I really wanted to talk about here, two things. It's all with the front court. Adu Thiero, 17 minutes, 4 blocks. Ugana Onyenso, 10 minutes, 3 blocks. That's 27 minutes combined, 7 blocks from Thiero and Ugana. So just crazy effort. The energy was just exploding in this game. What I really wanted to harp on, though, the Bradshaw Baycott matchup. Okay, Aaron Bradshaw in his 3rd game. Okay, this kid just turned 19 in November. All right, last month just turned 19. In 21 minutes, that's 12 points, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, only 2 turnovers. Okay, gotten a little bit of foul trouble, but that's where you have Thiero and Ugana step up, and you don't miss his absence all that much. Baycott, okay, who turns 24 in March. Okay, he's 23 right now. I'm 23. 31 minutes, okay, 10 more minutes than Bradshaw. 9 points, 6 rebounds, a steal, a block, 6 turnovers. The 19-year-old won the matchup. I mean, come on. Aaron Bradshaw is good, really good. Way better than I thought he was. I thought he was pretty good. So yeah, I'm jumping with joy from this result. The guards made the plays late game. The front court was physical. Man, what a game. What a game.
Yeah, I mean, look, and again, North Carolina took the lead. I was looking at this as we were talking, 5:15 to go. Baycott makes the free throw, 72-71. Carolina leads the game. And then what happens, right after that? Bradshaw makes the layup, Dillingham makes the layup,
Dillingham.
then Dillingham does another one. So, in a span of a minute and a half, all of a sudden, Kentucky's on a 6-0 run. after North Carolina takes the lead. And again, I think that's where you see this team. That's what they've been good at.
Yes.
And I think we've seen that before. And again, I know you can kind of take out the Wilmington game and obviously the Kansas game. They were in a great position, and then Kansas just kind of took over from there. But I think you're starting to see the responding to, again, a team making a run like that, even just taking the lead. We know mentally what that can do. It's like, oh man, we just
Mhm.
had this 12-point lead, double-digit lead. You knew Carolina was going to make a run at some point, and they were able to again take the lead there for a short stretch. But yeah, I mean, it's just you've got gamers. Like these
Yes, that's a
guys are
good way to put
gamers.
it.
Like they are just that's what
Yep.
they are, and that's the thing. Like a lot of them are young, and they're gamers. Like and that's what you want to see. So you've got that blend of older guys who have been around here before.
Fearless.
They
Good word.
yeah, like Reeves has been in these spots before. Mitchell's been in these spots before. Think about all the other guys. Like this is kind of most of the other guys the first time they've been in these kind of positions, and like you said, they're fearless. Like they just go in and make plays and they don't care. And so, yeah, man, I mean, this team is, boy, when you see them get going like they did for, at various points in this game, you can see why we were so high on them coming into the season and why I think everyone sees the upside that's there with this team. And, they didn't even shoot as well as they have been. And yet, they're still able to find a way to go 8 to 23 in this game,
Plus, put
35%.
on the boards.
Right, 18 offensive rebounds. There's no Oscar Tshiebwe. Like we're used to, he's not
I
he's not on the
know.
floor anymore. They got 18 offensive rebounds as a team. So that's good too. So huge win for Kentucky.
Yep.
Normally this is the spot where we'd say, all right, well now you get to go on and play the rivalry game against Louisville. Ooh, that could be
Hey,
that may not
Louisville
be
looked good
pretty.
against Pepperdine.
Well, that may not be pretty for the Cardinals in that game. We'll see how that plays out. But a huge win for Kentucky. Louisville,
Yep.
Illinois State up next, and then Kentucky starts SEC play on the road on January 6th against the Florida Gators. All right. We're going to just, again, kind of cruise through a couple other these games. All right. Let's just talk about Ole Miss for a second, Max, because they're still
All
unbeaten.
right.
And, I know this is why you showed up to work this morning here, because
Yep.
you just want to talk about Ole Miss. 10-0. They are 10-0 on the season now. And what do you know? They play another game that's decided by 10 points or fewer. This one was decided by 10, so on the higher side for the Rebels, as they get an 88-78 win over Cal. Cal's a work in progress. I think that's probably putting it lightly. But nonetheless, I mean, Ole Miss does it again, right? And the bigger story here was, of course, the debut of one Brandon Murray, who finally out on the floor. And we'll talk about this NCAA nonsense at another time. But I mean, I think you see it, Max. Like he only scored 3 points here, played 17 minutes. Didn't really take a lot of shots, but he had 4 assists. I still think just the addition of him that gives you another guy to work with. And I tell you, when you look at this, they played 8 guys basically, right? Because Murray, Caldwell, Cisse all came off the bench. Then of course Morrell, Flanagan, Jalen Murray, Brakefield, and Sharp. I think this is why we were excited about this team going into the season. That 1 through 8 right there alone, like that's a group you can win a lot of games with. And now that the full pieces are back in place for the first time, and we'll see how long this goes, depending on the NCAA stuff. But 1 through 8, people can say, well, Ole Miss hasn't played anybody. They may fall off. They may, but 1 through 8, I'm fine with that group going up against top tier SEC competition.
Yep. You already know what I'm going to say. May 31st, Blake. May 31st is when I said this would be a top 25 team. 7 months later, here we are, finally. So many different guys that can hurt you, and that's not what we thought coming into this season. I thought that this would be like, if you told me 5 months ago Ole Miss is going to play a Mark Madsen Cal team, I'm going to say, okay, the game's going to end 50-45.
Yeah.
That's not what we're seeing here. This offense is firing on all cylinders. A big reason why is Matthew Morrell broke down his shooting splits from the first 6 games to the past 4. Okay, first 6 games, Morrell shoots 8 of 32, 25% from 3. Past 4 games, he has shot 15 of 23, 65.2%. from three. So the guy's just shooting lights out, and that's opening up the floor spacing a lot. Is he going to shoot 65% the rest of the season? Probably not, but probably more towards 35, 40. Cisse and Sharp combined for 35 minutes, 5 blocks. That's one thing that we really liked coming into this season was the 40 minutes of constant rim protection. It's there. The one thing that I want to say, though, is the KenPom disrespect here, Blake. Way better than 90th. This team is not the 90th team. And like you tell me there's 89 better teams than Ole Miss right now. Oh, give me a break. But yeah, undefeated Ole Miss, just getting better. And if you haven't watched them, because they haven't played a lot of like prime time games, if you haven't watched, this is a fun team. Juju Murray is crafty, flashy. They've got shooters around. They bring in TJ Caldwell off the bench who can shoot. It's a fun team. It's not this grindy, nasty, slow defensive team. They actually get up and down and run a little bit. So a little bit of a different team than I thought it would have been, but still winning.
You don't know what I think about Ole Miss being at 90 and KenPom right now. You want to know who number 89 is without cheating?
Who is it? I don't even want to know.
You don't. Oklahoma State, who is currently 5-5, has lost to Abilene Christian, St. Bonaventure, Notre Dame, Creighton, and Southern Illinois. Its best
What are we doing here?
Oral Roberts. It was 178.
Are you kidding me?
That's what I think about Ole Miss being ranked. I got nothing against KenPom. I love it, but it's just I don't think just yet it is set the course for what is actually happening on the court at times. But that's okay. You're getting more data as each game is played, and so we'll see kind of where Ole Miss winds up. They should continue to rise, would be my guess, but we'll see.
Well, they got Tennessee coming up.
Maybe it's like the net. Maybe the more games you play and win, you go further down because they're not winning by enough, right? So I mean, they're the ultimate like anti-net. Ole Miss is like net's all about you got to win games by 40, man. They're not beating anybody by 40. So I don't even know where they're at in the net. I think I put the numbers out yesterday, but
I hate the net.
Yeah, well. Oh, there's another team in the net that's has reached a point that I don't think I thought any SEC team would reach. Ole Miss is 64 in the net, so actually that's much higher than I thought they would be.
That's much more accurate.
Yeah, so 64 in the net. If we were playing old school NCAA basketball, they would be the last team in the tournament, right? You just pick the top 64 teams. So give me Ole Miss against the number 1 overall seed right now. So I don't think that's how they do it in the rankings, though. But
they'll be top 25 here.
Oh yeah. Let's see. What's the next game we need to hit? Oh yeah, Creighton, Alabama. Creighton 85, Alabama 82. I feel like we should just loop the preview, because I think we should just, rather than say anything, we just put the preview on loop, because I told you, we were talking about this morning before we started recording, I thought this game went exactly the way we thought it would, to the T. This was pretty much what you thought it would be. Two teams that were going to score a lot of points. I thought it may be a higher scoring game than it was, actually, which is wild that 85-82 felt like a low scoring game made for these two. But I mean, Max, what did I tell you my biggest concern was for Alabama in this game? Beside the obvious of the defense, right? I told you, I said, my fear is that they're not going to shoot it well from three. Well, and I also told you I thought they'd shoot 40. They only shot 22.
I know. And they went what I say, 46?
Yeah, I think maybe you said 46. So they go 4 of 22 from three. And I said, if that happens, they're in trouble. They really weren't, though. I mean, they had a chance to win the game, and what they did was take advantage of what we said with Creighton, a team that had given up 68-ish% of their points in leading into this game from two. And Alabama said, all right, we're going to take what you give us. We're going to go in. We're going to kind of, try to take advantage of that, knowing that this is a team that doesn't give up a lot from three. They don't foul a lot. And that kind of proved itself too, right? Alabama only shot 13 free throws in this game. Creighton had 16 fouls for the game as a whole. But all that to say, Alabama had their chances. I thought they did exactly what you probably should have done to give yourself the best chance offensively. Because, again, we didn't know if this would be a game 3-point wise, where if they're just not hitting shots or if Creighton's just not giving them the opportunities, go take advantage of what they give you. But, I mean, defensively, I feel like we're a broken record at this point. But what else do you say? Right now, they They cannot defend without fouling. They're just giving up too many good opportunities that either turn into points or turn into free throws. And I mean, I don't, again, I feel like we go back to our season preview. I told you, I'm like, the guy's name, I will say it all season long because I just think this team, you don't even understand how much different this team would be if they just had one guy. And I'm
I
not
know
talking
you're
about
saying.
Brandon Miller, right? I'm not talking about Noah Clowney,
Nope.
which again, love to have those guys. But it's Charles Bediako. Like if they
Yep.
just had that guy, how many blocks do they have in this game, Max?
Not many.
One, a single block, right? So you think about that. I mean, sure, guys are impacting shots, but statistically, you just look at it. It's hard, if you're doing that. If you're not affecting shots, if you don't have that guy in the middle who can affect shots, it leads to what we saw in this game. Like I thought, again, this played out exactly as expected. I think by the time the game started, I was like, I'm changing my mind. I'm going all in on Alabama to win this game. But yeah, they could not. And that's where it gets frustrating, probably if you're an Alabama fan, right? Just a couple defensive plays where you go without fouling, or you get a couple, stops here or there. You don't give up the easy opportunities. You win the game, but just didn't happen.
Yeah, like I said earlier, Wagi is starting to be that. Nah, he's not. He's nowhere close, Bediako, but the best rim protection that they have. But he just cannot stay out of foul trouble. He cannot defend without fouling. Just cannot do it every game now. So until he Wagi, that is, until he learns how to defend without fouling. And Pringle had a decent game, but more offensively, right? All right, Pringle
Yeah.
brings a little bit more offense rather than defense. I still like the fight though. They're never out of a game. They're not. Alabama is not going to get blown out. They just shot the worst they're ever going to shoot, pretty much, and they're not getting blown out. They're never gonna. Their offense is too good to get blown out. So that's where I do like them. My preseason worries about Aaron Estrada translating, maybe having a little bit of a hiccup early on, is he just kind of seems like he's not really sure what the offense needs from him. Just looks a little bit hesitant, doesn't really know his role right now. And does, Sears going off have a little bit to do with that? Kind of throws Estrada off of his rhythm. Maybe, I'm not sure, but I don't want to, you nailed it, with what we've been talking about and what we've been harping on with Alabama. The one thing I'm trying to stay positive with this team because I like their fight. They got fight, and I really like that. They're never going to be out of a game. Until we see this front court defense tighten up, this is what we're going to see every game against a good opponent. This is what we're going to see. But just to re-loop back to what I like, this team's never going to be out of a game. They're just always going to be in it.
Yeah. If you're an Alabama fan, I don't think you should be overly concerned. Because like you said, I think they've got all the pieces to where, and look, we talk about numbers and stuff, right? They're still number 9 in KenPom. I think they're number 10 in the net. And this is where scheduling helps you. This is where we're going to, I think, see Alabama. This is going to pay off. I know right now it's like, well, our 4 best opportunities, we've lost them all. But you're going to see these games pay off. And remember, they play Arizona on Wednesday. So I think you'll see this pay off down the road. Once we get into SEC play, once you get into those kind of stretches where you're playing, those tough combination of games in 1 week and all that. So, but the defense has to get better. There's no doubt about it. But like you said too, if you want to be positive, they made 4 threes, foul trouble across the board, still gave up a lot of, baskets they probably shouldn't have, and they lost by 3 points on the road.
Put it this way: if it's flipped, they play at Coleman instead of Omaha. I think Alabama wins.
Yeah, because they're probably making more than 4 threes. So
they're making more than 4 threes, and they're not getting that whistle. So
yeah, so there you go. All right, again, Arizona on Wednesday, which we will preview that one too. The gauntlet of games. It's like we've been doing nothing but previewing Alabama games here on the channel, but they've had the most high-profile games, as we know here recently.
All against teams with monsters in the front court.
Just unbelievable stretch. And I'm sure Alabama's thrilled at the fact that Arizona lost to Purdue, which means they'll come out nice and hungry maybe for that one. All right. Most probably won't spend a lot of time on this one, but Tennessee gets another win, 79-70 over NC State. The Vols moved to 8-3. They've won 4 in a row now since that 3-game losing streak to Purdue, Kansas, and North Carolina. Any huge takeaways for you in this one, Max? Josiah Jordan-James, 23 points. Guy Ziegler, 20 points. And I think that maybe most notable in this one, I thought, Ziegler playing 38 minutes in this one. If you had any questions about this guy being all the way back, which we know he's been playing this season, but 38 minutes is nice to see. I think for him, he gave you 8 assists, only 3 turnovers. Um, Shades of the old guy Ziegler, especially making the threes. And that's where I do think that's maybe the biggest takeaway for me here. Dalton Connect scores 2 points. 2. And Tennessee, though, that's where you see if you can have this from Josiah Jordan-James and Kai Ziegler. These guys goes to combine, I think it was 9 of 16 from 3, 9 of 15 from 3. That's not going to happen every game, but if you can get the offensive output from those guys consistently, and you kind of show that they can step up when a Dalton Connect is 1 of 7 from the floor or whatever he was, that's why I think this Tennessee team just continues to be dangerous. 1 through 8 is they got a lot of guys who can step up and make shots when needed. And, this was kind of that unusual game from Dalton Connect where we had 7. I think the last game was Georgia Southern, had 2 here against NC State. I don't think this guy's fallen off by any means, but showing that a James and a Ziegler can step up, that's one of the reasons why I think we were so high on Tennessee, just because it does feel like they have a lot more offensive options when they get in some of those stretches where maybe their best offensive player is not hitting shots.
A lot of times I like when a coach will just come out in the post-game press conference and kind of do our job for us and just do the analyst for us. And that's what Rick Barnes did this game. He goes, that was rock bottom for Connect. So, I mean, you don't have to hear it from us. That's right from coach. So, yeah, you find a way to win when your best scorer has rock bottom on a night. Spread was 9.5, and you almost cover when Connect puts up only 2 points. What was it, 2 or 4, something like that? Whatever it was. Yeah. Connect, horrible game. Zakai Ziegler, back. Okay, I was probably public enemy number 1 for Zakai Ziegler. He probably doesn't no clue who I am, but I was kind of dogging on him first few games. I was like, I know he's coming back from the injury, but if you're gonna play, you got to put in good minutes. And now he is. Okay, he's got his. I don't know what game it was that he flipped the switch, or maybe it was a practice, or maybe it was just something clicked with Ziegler, and he's got his mojo back. He's playing aggressive. He's making threes, shooting well. So hey, Tennessee, when you got your guy back, things are going well. So you found a way to win when Connect had a terrible game. I like it.
No, Vols finish up non-conference schedule against Tarleton State and Norfolk State before they open, as we mentioned a minute ago, against Ole Miss in Knoxville. So fun opener there for those 2 teams. All right, Max, we're going to get back to some of the Saturday games in a second, everyone. So if we haven't mentioned your team yet, we will here in kind of the wrap-up portion. But Sunday, we did want to note Auburn 91, USC 75. Yeah, I mean, we had Auburn at number 3 last week in our power rankings. I think some people were like, wait a second, sure about that? Yeah, because I can tell you right now, they're going to be top 3 again this week. I would be safe to assume that's the case. Yeah, this was one where, again, early in the season, I felt like defense was kind of the theme that we talked about, seeing how they continue to develop on that side of the floor. But man, you look at the offense here for Auburn. I mean, they found something. They found a bit of a groove here. After that Appalachian State game, if you take that out of the mix, you see what they've done offensively. You see the balance they had in this game. 5 players score between 11 and 15 points. That's what you want to see, Max, from this Auburn team. And you start to see guys who are making shots. And that's where I think you're seeing, the addition of an Aiden Holloway when he has some of those big games. It's coming from the 3-point line, right? The 4 of 7 here, the 5 of 8 against Indiana. From long range, like that's one of the reasons why expectations were so high for him is his ability to step up and make those kind of shots. Auburn goes 38% from 3 in this game. You'll take that if you're Auburn. I mean, 8 of 21, that's a nice, efficient number from the 3-point line. And so, this was a really good performance, I thought, from the Tigers. And again, seeing kind of the balance, seeing all the different guys they have available that can step up and have, a significant game offensively. That was nice to see here, and that's kind of been the theme recently for the Tigers.
I think we're starting to see how dangerous this team can be, especially with their depth and their physicality. Okay, bringing in Cardwell, okay, he had like a career night, right? But man, he's good. You can't deny it. You maybe look at Mississippi State, but other than them, I don't know many teams that have a better backup front court than this squad right here. So, I mean, you look at the Ken Palm numbers, and you've heard me just harp on how much I hate Ken Palm today. Well, this part passes the eye test, and it showed up in the results this year. Their assist rate is unbelievable. They have the fifth assist rate nationally, assisting on just under 70% of their made field goals, and it showed in the game at halftime. Aiden Holloway and Donaldson combined for 8 assists, 0 turnovers. I mean, that's some crazy efficiency. That's some crazy numbers. So, I mean, the team we've been talking this past month about how teams have had injuries and teams haven't had guys from waivers, and we're just trying to figure out identities. Not Auburn. They know their roles, and they're playing smooth, clean offense together. The defense is nasty. I don't know really what bad you can say about this team right now.
Yeah. No, I think again they've started to have some things click together. And they're going to finish non-conference portion: Alabama State, Chattanooga, Penn, and then they will start conference play January 6th at Arkansas. So, all right, Max, those are kind of the featured games, I guess, we're going to discuss here. Now, everything else we will run through. I'm just going to give you some scores, all right? And you just take this wherever you want to take it. You just, you don't have to hit all of them, but I'm just going to give you the scores, and you can start here, start there, and we'll see where this conversation goes to wrap things up. Texas 96, LSU 85. So, kind of a tale of two halves, I thought, with that one. Georgia gets a ugly 66-58 win against High Point. Arkansas 69, Lipscomb 66, which I know Hog fans watching. That was closer than you wanted it to be. South Carolina 73, Charleston Southern 69. Gamecock fans watching, that was closer than you wanted it to be. Texas Tech 76, Vanderbilt 54. I don't know what to add on that one, just based on what we talked about with the Commodores recently. Mississippi State on Sunday 72 gets a 72-54 win over North Texas. And then Missouri fans watching, probably also disappointed. Seton Hall 93, Missouri 87. So I just gave you like 8 games to choose from there, Max. Any highlights, lowlights, which, like I said, you probably find some on both. What stood out to you the most from all these other games?
If we're starting out on a positive note, Kashawn Murphy for Mississippi State had his best game of the year. Finally looked 100%, finally looked healthy. And Chris Jans in the post-game presser said, he just changes our offense, And so when Tolu Smith gets back, watch out for this front court. I mean, and it's not only the front court, it's because you have DJ Jeffries and Cam Matthews there. This is just the center position, just center. You got Tolu Smith, Jimmy Bell Jr., and Kashawn Murphy. That's nasty. That's nasty. Okay, not many teams have that much physicality and quality. So Mississippi State started out slow, but found a way to grind out a win and kind of hold North Texas to really nothing. Seton Hall is a great offensive rebounding team, and you kind of saw what we thought we would without Caleb Grill. It's Nick Honor, it's Sean East, it's Tamar Bates. After that, it drops off a cliff. So they're gonna have to figure out, how to give those 3 a rest without Caleb Grill. LSU, the one thing I wanted to note is I think this team has no clue what their identity is. I mean, Hunter Dean, 28 minutes. His previous high was 12 on the year. Will Baker only plays 11 minutes. I think they're still trying to figure it out. But, hey, you only lose by 11 to a Dylan DeSue game. So, tale of two halves there. You kind of nailed it on that one. And then Arkansas, this is straight from Musselman. Musselman, straight quote from after the game. We're trying to figure out who we are, plain and simple. That's all. And you can tell when you watch it. No clue. The offense is just completely stagnant. Ball screen defense on defense. The pick and roll just dices this defense up. So just not a lot of identity right now. And Musselman said it himself. They don't know who they are right now. So that's that. And then one last thought on South Carolina. When Michie and Cooper go out, it's tough. Okay. I looked at the Bart Torvik numbers, players that play 25% minutes or more. Jacoby Wright and the freshman. I'm gonna butcher this last name bad, but Morris Ugusick, whatever his last name is. I'm sorry, it's a tough name to pronounce, but they're both bottom 10 in the SEC in plus minus. So moral of the story: when Michi Johnson and Talon Cooper go out, there's a huge drop in production, and that's kind of plaguing this offense right now. But those are my quick thoughts. You got anything, Blake?
Well, I will bring up the Arkansas. I'll talk about the two things that probably are disappointing. The two teams we talked about a lot here on the channel last year, as we know, was Missouri and Arkansas. And I think for the Arkansas, you mentioned one of the quotes Musselman said. I'm going to add the other one that he said. Like you said, trying to figure out who you are. And then he followed up with who plays with consistency, who can react to loose balls, who can defensive rebound, who can keep the ball in front of them. Like those are all questions that they're still trying to figure out. And they are 10 plus games in the season, right? Yeah, like that is concerning.
That's an issue.
And again, that they just have not figured that out before. So, yeah, I mean, it's you've seen it at times with this team, but again, one thing he did add is talking about the differences between past teams and this team, and how every team is different, basically. And that I think he said own personality. That was the quote he used. But he also kind of plainly said there's no traits that our past teams had. Basically, I guess in terms of like this team and the past teams. So it's a different team, and that's why they are trying to figure everything out. And it's not made for a pretty experience most of the time through these 11 games outside of the Duke game, right? Like that was the big highlight. And so yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting because like we mentioned, like don't look now, but they got to play UNC Wilmington on December the 30th, and we've already seen what Wilmington can do when they go into SEC country at this point. Which again, they are 8-2 right now. Like don't just completely overlook Wilmington at this point. But yeah, so I'm curious to see when do they figure it out. When do they find out who they are? How quickly does that come together? Because we've seen this struggle earlier than expected. Usually it's the first of SEC play, somewhere in there, end of non-conference play. But it's happened earlier this year than we thought. And look, they played a tough schedule too with the different teams that are on there, like we mentioned, whether it's Memphis, Carolina, Duke, Oklahoma, and so forth. So, yeah, I'm not concerned, but I do think he sounds like he's concerned with some things. And so if the head coach is saying that, then we have every reason to look at that too. Now, on the Missouri front, I won't just be negative too. I'll finish with a positive also. But this is just it's kind of the same as Arkansas. This is just a different Missouri team. If you came into the season thinking this was going to be the team like last year, it was not going to happen. And that's one of the reasons why we probably had them a bit lower. I don't remember if we had them eighth, ninth, something like that in the SEC. Was just it was easy to look at this team on paper and just say, hey, I said every conversation with Missouri led with two things. It's like they don't have Kobe Brown, they don't have Des Moines Hodge.
Yep.
Of course, as the resident Dennis Gates expert here, like I trust Dennis Gates to figure it out. But it's also understandable that when you look at this team, I don't know that there was ever the expectation that this looked like a team that was going to be a top 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. Like, it just was not. I think there was too much to figure out. There were a lot of unknowns. And again, you removed, I thought, two of the biggest pieces of the puzzle from last year. And yet I think you could look at this roster and be like, I don't really see anyone who's going to replace those guys individually. And we've seen that to this point. It just hasn't happened. Yes, we've seen Sean East step up, have big games. Nick Connors had big games. Bates having 22 was great. But I just think the defensive issues are still there, to say the least. And those were corrected last year. They weren't even, I don't know, they were ultimately corrected. They were aided by the fact that they were so good offensively. But the question I asked you not long ago about Missouri, what do they do like as well as anybody? Like where is their elite area? Free throw shooting. That's about it. Like, and if that's like your number one, highest percentage area, that's not great because, they block shots too. I forgot to, let's not take that away from them. But, and they can force turnover, they do that. But last year it was just so obvious, right? When you looked at the numbers, like, oh, wow, that's a top 10 team in this area. That's a top 10 team in that area. And they just don't have that offensively right now. And they're not, again, they're just not great defensively. So when you put them in this kind of situation where they're playing teams that aren't, bad, you're going to have those inconsistencies. And we've seen that. And of course, they got Illinois on Friday, which will not be an easy game by any means. So, Yeah, so Arkansas fans, Missouri fans, we got a lot of you that watch our stuff on the channel, but it's a grind right now, and it may be a grind for a while for these teams, but we'll see how it plays out. On the positive front, Max, I mean, I guess I'll just add, like, South Carolina's still 9-1. I know it wasn't pretty against Charleston Southern. Last couple games have been a little iffy in terms of how they played, and like you mentioned, if you take one of those, two of those guys out of the equation, I call them the big four, like, then maybe you got some issues, but I'm curious to see how they play on Tuesday against Winthrop, because Winthrop's not a bad team. Um, and so I'm curious to see how they, if they can keep this thing going. So that's all I got, Max.
Blake, the numbers are backing up your Missouri analysis there. Their turnover and steal percentage has dropped 3% from last year already.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was just a different team. And
Yep.
I think I don't know, we had our fun last year in Missouri. Everyone knows, like, we've had our fun with the Dennis Gates stuff. And yes, me saying whatever I said when he was hired, about how high I was on him. And, sure, it worked out great to start with. But this is basketball in the transfer portal era. And I think Muss nailed it, right? Like, whether it's talking about Missouri, Arkansas, whoever, every team is different now.
Mm,
And they had some guys returning, that played big roles, East, Honor, Carter, etc. But every team's different because you're always adding multiple pieces every single season. And, I just think and you're removing guys every single season. And I think last year, there was a lot that went Missouri's way last year. We're not just going to say they got lucky, but you know what? They got lucky at times, because that's what sports are. Like, sometimes you need the ball to bounce your way, and they won a lot of close games. This year, they've had those struggles. They're 7-4 too, by the way. Like they're 4-7,
right.
but still, I know that both those fan bases, Arkansas and Missouri, expect more. And so, yeah, I can understand their frustrations right now as we get closer to the start of a league play. But there you go, Max. There are thoughts on the weekend action in SEC basketball. And again, a lot of interesting stuff moving forward in the league. Some interesting storylines. Toulouse Smith should be back soon enough for Mississippi State.
Oh yeah.
How does that affect the Bulldogs, who we've talked about, quite a bit, and they're maybe starting to regain some momentum after that 2-game losing streak to Georgia Tech and Southern. So yeah, a lot of interesting teams and some interesting spots as we get ready for conference play. But of course, you guys can follow it all here at Southeastern 14. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well. Lots of SEC basketball coverage as always, and SEC football stuff. Bowl season for the SEC officially getting started here soon enough. So hit that subscribe button. Check out everything we got on the channel. And as always, we appreciate you watching here, Southeastern 14, presented by Bet.